How do I even know? I think we have to do this. It's not okay, so it doesn't do that. No, we'll just go. Hello, if you're watching this, bear with me for a moment. Wow, look at that. Okay. There's clearly a delay. If you're watching this, bear with me for a moment. Okay, so, hi. Welcome back to Film-Studio-Taku-in-Japan. I think we're actually going to be changing it to Film-Studio-Japan very soon because that is my website, is Film-Studio-Japan.com. That's where I'm selling my prints. Please go there right after this video, Film-Studio-Japan.com. Buy the largest, most expensive print you can afford and support the arts. You may have noticed something here. I broke my wrist several weeks back, and that of itself is a story that I may do a whole other stream about. But the short version of why I'm doing this video is because I've sold, or rather put up for sale, a couple of my lenses. I plan to sell a couple more as well. Originally I was actually considering selling my 250mm GF lens, but I decided that was nonsense. It is one of my heavier lenses, but the reality is I can shoot it one-handed, and I think I'll really regret selling that lens. Plus the price of that lens, it's like I get a lot of cash, but when am I really going to want to invest that much in a lens again anytime soon? Probably not for a while. The lens I did, though, put on auction, and it's already got bids, so I would have to do a whole cancel thing and pay a cancellation fee, is this, my 32 to 64mm, little things like that hurt, lens, GF lens. Now this lens, let me tell you, first of all, it's a nice lens. It's a really nice lens. The drawback, you know, I think for most is that it's f4, which means that you're not getting the bokeh, but you can get fairly close in. I've done some stuff with it and really had some pretty good results with close-up modeling type stuff. But in general, what I use this for, as we're gonna see here, I'm going to, let's see here. This is the first time I've ever tried using OBS Studio for live streaming and doing a basically dual screen. This should be a split screen or something, but it's not. So let's see here. That's just the image I was putting up for the thumbnail. So basically, yeah, this lens, what it really shines for is landscape and architecture. It's, and I would say even more so the architecture in Tokyo, because, you know, at 32 to 64, what we have here, a lot of these are unedited photos, so some of them are pretty dark. But what we have here is basically a 25mm to 50mm lens. So 25mm being, you know, full frame equivalent, being pretty wide. And you're able to get, you know, from distance especially, I mean, this is not by any means a perfectly framed shot. Usually my first shots of the day are throwaway shots, but you know, I mean, obviously GFX 100S resolution is there, and you're able to get quite a bit fairly easy. And what I really love about the GFX system in general, you know, at first it was a pain in the ass. You know, anytime you switch systems, you know, the color science is different, contrast and all that stuff on different systems tends to be a little different, and the way it works in your NLE or your photo editing software is different. And really in Darktable I was really not having fun for a while. I need to stop holding this in my hand because that's my bad hand. But I, you know, I've learned some tricks. I've started getting little things dialed in and starting to figure out, you know, ways to pull out details more, to work with the general image. Generally, right now though, I mean, I'm seeing this. If you're not seeing that, I'm not liking what that is doing here. But I thought I'd just show you really quickly. Had no intention of doing it with this photo, but you know, when it's open, just kind of show you a little bit of my process. Basically what you've seen so far. I think we're going to do a repeat of this. I'm going to just basically talk until I'm ready to go to sleep, so deal with it. But I'm a nice guy, really. But yeah, so back to while I do this though, the 32 to 64. Why I put it on the auction block is the weight and the fact that it is a zoom lens. And I was thinking in my head that, you know, this is going to be a difficult action now. I got my cast off literally, well, now it's yesterday, but basically today. You know, I've had a cast on for 2 weeks. They were going to cut it to half cast, but, you know, I kind of gently said that I would really prefer not to have a cast that I have to wear because it's just really limiting for me. And he basically told me, well, as long as you promise to be careful, which I will do my best, but I'm not. I'm really bad at being careful. But I'll do my best. And, you know, I went a week without a cast at all. The first doctor gave me kind of like a half cast, and the doctor that gave me the cast was really surprised that I survived that long without a cast. So I will be careful enough, I think. I digress. Yeah, so what I am noticing though is, you know, this lens it is really smooth zooming, and that's one of the things I like. And one of the reasons that I feel that I've made a mistake here is that this lens, though I don't use it that much for that, what it actually is phenomenal for is video. Partially because it lets you do these pretty smooth focus pulls. Secondly, because it's linear motor, so the focus is smooth and accurate. It really tracks well. It does things well. It's on par, at least with my Nikon Z6, the way that it performs on the GFX 100S. It is a substantial weight. I forget the exact weight, but it's something like 800 grams. So combined with the GFX 100S, which is, I believe, also 800-ish grams, you're talking about, and I also have a little L bracket on that, so you're talking about basically almost 2 kilograms all up weight. So yeah, there's valid reason, because it's not just turning the zoom and the focus, but the fact that I'm going to be holding it like that and occasionally do stupid things like let go of the camera and be holding all that weight. And even just now, dipping down like that, it hurts. I'm not careful, right? Yeah, the disadvantages of this lens is it doesn't have its own stabilization. It's in camera, which still works pretty well, but not as nice as the 250mm, which has its own stabilization. My thinking was that I would sell this, and originally that 250mm, what I've actually opted to sell instead was my famed Nikon 200 to 400mm, because that is a 3.3 kilogram lens, and I have to be honest with myself, when is the next time that I am going to want to pick up that lens? And I don't think it's going to be for a while. So anyways, we're we're going to get out of this picture. I'm not happy with the way that's going there. I'll work on that by myself. But yeah, so yeah, the 200 400mm is going, and 32-64 is going. And what I initially, this is not focused, what I initially planned on doing with that is to, hey, there you are, okay, is to switch to the 110mm, you know, the portrait lens for Fujifilm. But I also have been toying with using the Nikkor 105mm, which is a 1.4 for obvious reasons. I mean, you get the bokeh with that lens and still pretty darn good results. Speaking of pretty darn good results, globally this kind of image really looks great. If you punch in, this was handheld. This was I believe this was a handheld. Let's see here, we got, yes, F9, 30-second exposure. No, this would not be handheld. What I probably was doing was I was probably putting on the rail. There's a rail right here that I can be against. I do use tripod here sometimes, but only with the 250. I don't think I've ever used the 32-64 on the tripod at this location. So believe it or not, This is a handheld-ish 32 to 64 millimeter, excuse me, 30-second exposure. Not perfect by any means, but I mean, yeah, definitely a workable image. A lot of these are either unworked or I just didn't really get where I wanted to be with them, and I kind of gave up because I take too many photos. But yeah, see, these are my basics, by the way. Go-to. This is just recently I've really actually I usually turn off Filmic RGB lately. I used to use it a lot, but I recently, tell me if I'm wrong, somebody that's into Darktable, I don't think this was in it before. I think this is a recent addition, the sigmoid, and if it wasn't, I simply didn't notice it. I really like this with the GFX files. This really, sometimes it goes a little too dark or a little too contrasty, but it's easy enough to adjust here, reduce the contrast, and then skew, which presumably just kind of does more micro adjustments from the look of it. Yeah, targeting black, you go this way, it actually does quite the opposite of what I would think it does. It doesn't, it lightens the black. I would think it would darken it, but, and then white, again, kind of does the opposite of what you would imagine, but, or at least what I would imagine. But yeah, with that alone, you know, you see the contrast is vastly improved in this image. I don't know if you can see that. I think, is that actually writing on the wall? But yeah, let's, rather than work one of these mediocre pictures, let's get into something else here. That's one of my favorites, but I've worked that to death. Maybe we could do something. This is, by the way, just a correction. If you're not familiar with Darktable, though, I will say Darktable is really, this is terrible right here, I know. We're going to just totally reset that. Darktable is really useful in that it's really easy to do these kinds of corrections. I can do the whole image here, and it's going to choose all the basically horizontal vertical lines and try and figure it out. And if I click this, it'll do both at the same time. And there you go. It's actually pretty good just right off the bat. And that's set, by the way, to, you can turn that off, but crop the largest area. You can turn it off, and then you can kind of choose your own crop area if you prefer. But generally speaking, it does pretty good with that. So, yeah. What is this video about today? I don't know. It really was supposed to be about this lens, but I just, you know, I haven't been posting a lot, so I just said, you know what, I'm just going to do this stream before I fall asleep because I just haven't had time to do any editing lately. So, this is, you get what you get tonight. Like most of my streams, I will likely delete this very shortly after I put it up. It's not bad though, right? So we can go a little bit more cool industrial look here. We can turn the Velvia on. Another great thing about Darktable, we're going to turn that Velvia off. I'll show you something. This is, see, I already had done color balance RGB on this image. I would say I did a pretty good job on that. A lot of times I do something nice like this, and then later I go in and do all kinds of crazy stuff. And that's why it looked like shit when we got into it. With the color lookup tables, it actually has this nice set of color lookup tables which happen to be Fujifilm simulations. Wow, isn't that nice? So I used to use these on Nikon too, but on Fuji obviously they make a little more sense. You have Asia. See, look at that. Nice, pretty nice. Yeah. Something I love about shooting in Tokyo with Fujifilm in general, Nikon does this too, the GFX 100S, it's just, you know, you can see the air, you see that atmosphere, you know, the basically combination of humidity and pollution in the air that just the light captures that is usually not really noticeable in most camera systems, but the Fuji really, it picks it up very nicely. This also is slightly long exposure. What do we have here? I have not, actually I've been sort of, oh, it's 20 seconds. Okay, pretty long. I've been staying away from Darktable for a while. I've been kind of too busy, and if I'm not careful, I end up doing this for hours and hours and hours, and I don't sleep. Like right now, it's 3:55 a.m. So let's see here. Is there actually anyone in here? I should check real quick. Where is, oh, what happened? Does it show me? One watching. There's one person. That's me. I'm watching. I'm the only person watching. That's amazing. Wow. That's a record right there. So, so let's see here. Yeah, what was I trying to do? I was just showing the color lookup tables here, which you can, by the way, do lots of stuff to adjust them. But in general, I like them the way they are. Classic Chrome really looks nice on that. As does monochrome. Provia is usually my go-to, not always. Velvia was what I wanted to show you though. See, look at that. That's usually, in general, looks better than the separate Velvia up here. You can do though, however, double Velvia. Wow, that's a little too much. But you can go in here and you can adjust the strength of this Velvia. So if you just want a little bit more of that contrast of colors, you can play around with it. This going this way actually gives you a little bit more vibrancy, mid-tone bias, but it tends to boost the colors a little bit more, usually too much. Yeah, that's not bad. It's not my taste per se, but it's not bad. This is, you know, it's a long exposure, and I'm right under or even over. There's train tracks going by over here. There's a bridge above me. There's traffic behind me. And because Tokyo by nature is made to move for earthquakes, unfortunately a lot of times when you do long exposures you do get this kind of micro movement, even if you're on a very solid tripod. Not always, but often. So I actually sometimes find with that 250mm lens that leaving stabilization on actually gets me a sharper image. It's contrary to common knowledge of how to shoot long exposures, but sometimes that's the first time though, really, the 250mm lens. That's the first time I found a lens that actually leaving stabilization on actually helps with some long exposures. Not always, but sometimes. Okay, I'm going to turn Velvia back off. Actually, what I want to show you here, something interesting, is the standard, by the way, skin tones. Like if you turn off RGB, color lookup table, it's exactly the same. There's no difference. I almost say tiniest different. I was going to say, something I often do is classic chrome on the color lookup table, and then put Velvia on. With that combination, you sometimes get some really nice results. So like right in there. Sort of. And then we can go a little, yeah, even going further there. It kind of takes away that over saturated look that Velvia sometimes gets, and just kind of gives you, it keeps the kind of cooler tones, especially in grays and stuff like that, which for stuff like this with buildings I think is nice. So yeah, I would say that's a decent image, not necessarily finished. What's another good one in here? Some of these I have really not played with at all. This is sort of, I think this is the first time that I went down to this spot right here. Oh no, this is the second time. I believe this is the second time. The first time I ended up with some better overall shots. I think this time I was actually experimenting with even longer exposures, and that's when you see here I got some movement. Oh, that's a raw file. I was trying to open just the JPEG files, but yeah. Anyways, I got this movement in the water. Something I will say though is it's really amazing how clear this water's been lately. I think it's partially because of the decline in shipping and stuff since COVID. So let's look at one of these clearer images because it's really impressive. We'll open a raw file because I think we're going to be able to look deeper into the water that way. Yeah. You know, that's all underwater boat there. You can actually see like almost the bottom of the keel down here. It's pretty impressive. And that sigmoid, even in raw, it's actually remarkable how quickly it improves the overall look of a raw file. It's just putting that sigmoid on. that, some local contrast. Yeah, that was surprising. Usually it would go the other way, but that was kind of interesting. But I like that. You know what? We'll do this one. This is a picture that I think is worthy. It's blurred out a little bit back here, but it's sharp enough here to make me like it. It needs a little bit of leveling after the fact, but might be a nice one on this with that classic chrome. We're going to do a whole other plethora of things here. I'm going to show you really what I do here. Oops. No. Color balance, RGB. Okay, this has not been touched yet. I used to start at the top with contrast, and actually in raw, I think usually I do actually. See, that's a little too much, but because it's a blurred background, it's almost giving it a toy-like quality that I like. But in general, I was going to say I start down here, because usually I like to start with controlling the highlights. So we can do that first, and just kind of adjust levels. I often go back through it 2 or even 3 times, and sometimes even do multiple layers. I'll do a mask on certain things if it's really just not meshing with the rest of it, like maybe, for example, these highlights here. But usually I can get there. And just so you know, I mean, see, I just accidentally reset it. By the way, it took me forever in Darktable to find the go back button, which is Control X. Even though it said not assigned, it is. It is. Control X. What's going on there? Okay, it's not assigned. What's happening? So I click that with the mouse. That's really... Oh. Control Z. Okay, Control Z. That's weird. I don't know what happened there. It seemed to have reversed itself. See, Control X. You're going to go forward. This has to be the worst stream ever, right? No. There's worse. I've seen them. A little bit too kind of almost green tones creeping in there, but I can work on that later. This is really just to give you an idea of kind of how I flow through Darktable. What I was trying to say earlier, though, is that a lot of people, especially with Photoshop and Lightroom, there's so many tutorials and schools for them. There are a lot of tutorials out there for Darktable, and I've done some of them in the past, but by the time I started actually using stuff in practice, I've usually forgotten what I learned from the tutorial, and it really comes down to just me finding the tools that work for me personally. You can see we have lots of different looks here, over saturated to very dulled down, kind of like that, but at the same time. This is chroma, so yeah, so there's so many different things we can do here. This is not the look I was intending, and what I really wanted to say is that I tend to just kind of freestyle it. There are things that I tend to do over and over. I tend not to mess with hue shift. I was just playing with it there. But I think Velvia is going to go now, and we may take away our... What that means right there is there's 2 white balances applied, which usually doesn't happen. Sometimes it does, and I don't understand why. Yeah, so I would say classic chrome is still the only one here that actually makes any sort of sense. I'm not in love with this image here. I definitely would work it more, but I think that it's going to be a little bit of a tedious thing, but probably because the RGB was on. That always kicks me in the butt. There's some images it works with from the go, but a lot of times I just find that I don't like an image, and it's because RGB was on, and to be honest, you usually, in that situation, the smart thing to do is just start at the beginning, but I haven't in this long time. You see, though, that really improved now, the contrast in here. There's definitely blown out highlights back here, but granted, I mean, you have a moving boat here, and what is this? It's a 13-second exposure, so There's going to be some blur here. It's not going to be perfect, but some of these boats were staying still for quite a while. I found that, I think the time before this I was here, I was doing 8-second exposures, and that really seemed to be the ideal situation. Really, yeah. There probably are some in here that were about that. Maybe these ones down here. Something I love about Darktable though, so let's just say that we actually like this look, okay? I don't, but let's just say we liked it. So all we do is copy that right there. And then any that are basically, you know, taken in the same general lighting and such. Yeah, didn't quite work on that. Was that a raw file or a JPEG? No, that's a raw. That really changed that color, didn't it? That's unexpected. It's just that, you know, there definitely is light behind me here that's not behind me here, so I think it's whatever those lights are, but I'm surprised that it's affecting the sky so much. It's really unexpected outcome. No, wrong way, because we're in the, yeah, that's why. Okay, I hate it. It's terrible. It's terrible. Yeah, so, as I said, often it's a good idea to discard the history and just get out of it and start over. Okay. So, a good way to do with Darktable, I find, is to cruise through your JPEGs, find out which ones are the sharpest, because even if you're going to work with raw files, it's just a lot easier to see what Fuji pulled out with its little magic. You can see that first one was a little bit more crisp on the lettering here. So basically that would be, my choice would be either this one, or we'll go to the next one, the one over here, and see how that one held up. Nope. So the best choice would be the first one. So why did I even bother to do multiple shots? Look at that little, cool little patch open there with the light coming out. That's kind of nice. So yeah, this would be a nice one. Maybe we'll do real quick, just a real quick, see what we can do here. We'll try and, also, by the way, Lighttable down here has these great little tools. Sorry, that's not what I want. How come you're not showing me? Usually it'll highlight you and show which ones are which. Some of them are like peaking. And, yeah, come on, show me what they are. I don't know why it's not showing me. There we go, clipping preview mode, okay, and this one is, okay. I think that's showing you color gamut stuff, or is that this one? No, I think, yeah, this is to show you what colors are out of the actual gamut range, whatever that means. I know this stuff, and I forget it, and because I don't really need to know it. I just need to know if the image prints and looks nice. That's what I learned. So I keep that one on a lot though. This here, the one, it basically just tells me what's overexposed or underexposed. So sometimes you think, oh, I gotta get it all perfect, and you realize that it's a losing battle for two reasons. One, sometimes it's just pretty much impossible, and two, a lot of times it just ends up with an image that you're not as happy with. But that being said, it is a good practice to do, because a lot of times you will find that the final image, it's nice, and it also, you start there and you're going to find that it's easier to work with the image down the line. So like you get the basics right. And by the way, there's a Fujifilm like curve in here, which is fine. In general, let's turn this off for a second because it is distracting sometimes. In general, I'm not a fan of the curve. I mean, it usually does add contrast, but usually at the sake of blowing out highlights like crazy. I mean, of course I can turn the exposure down, but then things are going to start getting really, really dark, where the way that I had it before, you know, I was much more exposed before these highlights back here started being just ridiculous. You see, like, that's kind of what they were with the Fuji, but here I can bring it right down here. I'm really more focused on this sidewalk here. I think it's acceptable to blow out a little bit back there, but we might be able to work on them a little bit more. We'll turn it back on here. A little bit there. Thing is, I can go down, like I said, it started at a really good point like this, and then I can work it with some of the other controls I was showing you earlier. Shadows and highlights is something I used to always use, and I'm going to use it this time, but in general, just to tell you, I don't use it like I used to. This looks like this image, actually, I had already worked a little bit. We're going to keep that. I'm going to guess that no, hadn't touched the color balance review. That's surprising. Okay, so we'll do this image, and then I'll basically cut this stream, but I'm going through these images, the intention here, my intention and what I actually end up talking about are often different, especially when I'm sleep deprived at 4 in the morning. But it's just to show you why this 32-64mm lens is so versatile and useful, and especially for cities like, this is actually Yokohama, not Tokyo, by the way. It's such a sharp lens. If you read up about this lens, a lot of people will compare it to a prime in terms of sharpness and contrast. It's really a superior lens. F4 is limiting, yes, but the GFX is so capable in low light, as you can see here, that it's you get away with that F4. Plus F4 is really something like F3.2 on the GFX system because of the reverse crop and reverse aperture crop, whatever you want to call it. I'm probably talking way too quiet, by the way, for my little microphone on my... I have a lav here set up. It's not working for some reason with OBS Studio. And the streaming thing on the Nikon, it's not streaming audio, so I have to go through my little webcam, Logicool webcam audio, which is not terrible for what it is, but not great. And my voice is fading, and I don't seem to have any water or tea in my vicinity right now, which was a mistake. Might try another one of these soon, though. I might try and do something a little bit more comprehensive. But anyways, the point is that it's such a versatile lens, a walk-around lens for a city like Tokyo or Yokohama. And whatever I replace it with, I probably am not going... I mean, I could either cancel the auction or I could try to buy another one for the same price, which is very likely that I could. But what I am going to do, though, is I'm going to follow through. I think I'm probably going to get the 45mm f2.8 to replace this, and I'll probably get something like the 110mm for portraits. But I'm really, I'm flip-flopping a lot in my head. I keep thinking, well, maybe I should just get some nice manual focus lenses for a while. IRIX has that 45mm f1.4, which stopped down gets very, very sharp on wide open. Obviously it's not as sharp, but you have the bokeh and magic. And then also there's options like the Voigtlander 58 1.4, the Nikon 105 I already mentioned. And when you're talking 1.4 on a GFX, you're really talking about like f1.1-ish, which is just incredible. And a lot of those lenses are, if not as sharp, so close as to not really matter to, anyone viewing social media, any actual clients, and I'm sure I can still sell large prints. So yeah. Ooh, I almost like the Velvia there. In general, I don't do Velvia on night shots. The reason being that, if you don't know, blue is, for lack of more technical terms, is the noisiest channel. There's more noise in blue colors than anywhere else. But if you look, all I'm seeing is film grain. I'm seeing this nasty little something flew by there. That's an easy enough thing to fix. I'm just going to do a very quick sloppy one here. Yeah, no, not that sloppy. Hey, no, you're in the wrong area. Why did you do that? I still get confused sometimes. I'm new. I mean, that's probably fine, but it's not. Oh, it's still there. I make noises. Sorry about that. I'm gonna try and get it over here. So what was it like before? Okay, so there we are. Okay. If I was really doing this, what I probably would do, if I was really taking this seriously and not trying to move things along relatively quickly, I would do each one of those little dots individually so I could keep the original structure of this area, which I sort of maybe just did. Did I just do it? I did. Look at that. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. There we go. I mean, you wouldn't know, right? Yeah, that's fine. Especially when you consider where was that again? Right? Yeah, even when I turn it off, you still don't see it, right? I don't even know where was it. I seriously don't know. Sometimes you forget the massive resolution that you're working with here. Where was that? I see some other stuff up here. Was that one of those? No, it wasn't. I have no idea where. Oh, because I turned it on back on. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay, so it's up in there. So you wouldn't even. Most people would not even know that's there. There it is. Yeah, absolutely non-issue. Again, I can fix these real quick if I want to. I think those are actually stars, maybe stars. This is by no means what I would consider a finished picture. It's not bad by any means, but this is where I'd be like, okay, I want to do something here with the water. What you can do though here in Darktable fairly easily. You know, I used to do this with either lifting the shadows or just exposure. Exposure in general is the least CPU and graphics card intensive way to do this, but I don't recommend doing this like more than one extra instance. I sometimes do 3. 4 is asking for trouble, but you can do a mask. This is, again, I'm just gonna, I say I do a sloppy and then I end up spending an hour fixing it, but I'm not gonna do that this time. I am gonna pull these in a little bit so that the boat's not part of it. And, you know, again, you can perfect this mask, but with feathering, you know, and just generally the way we look at photos, you don't always notice the things that you would notice when you're actually the one editing the photo. But that being said, I am very OCD, and if I was doing this to sell this, I would spend a lot more time on. Hopefully, what I think is going to happen here is we're going to start seeing through this water. So we're going to, let's start with the midtones. Or we're not going to see through the water at all. Is this on? It is. Okay. Okay. There's something to work there, so let's start with the shadows then. Okay. Get some reflection at the very least. Don't want to do that. I want to zoom in on the area I'm working with a little bit. Yes, you can see that, but I'll show you really quickly, even though I've barely worked on it yet. So the feathering is going to take that right out. Okay. I can fine tune that. But I'm actually going to go back a little bit. We're not going to leave it quite this sharp. We're going to just kind of feather a little bit for now. If you do it too much, you lose too much contrast. But so you know, we're just going to play with this a little bit. You can obviously go up, and you see, like, that's the thing. It's like, initially it looks bad, but you realize, wow, look at all that detail that's still on that water, where before it was, you know, basically you couldn't see much there. You know, there is noise again in the blue channel. There's nothing in the midtones. Interesting. Highlights, there might be a little bit of the reflection. Global brilliance. I'm going to take that out. We're going to try, I have a feeling that when we get into the chroma grading, we're going to be able to, yeah, see, it's where we're able to just kind of get more, I'm going to say tonality. Tell me if that's the right word. I'm self-taught, okay? So don't judge me for my lack of technical wording. I mean, I know what these things, what the visual result is, but I don't always know the technical reality of what's happening here. But I do know that now with a little bit more feathering. We're not talking extreme here, not as extreme as I'd kind of hoped. I really do like what it's done with the reflection there, though. So, boom. You know, it's just one of those little details. And again, if we're really going to do it, we get back in here, we do a little bit more down here, we can do more over here. You know, you can also do it with a paintbrush. And I'm going to do it, but I'm also at the same time going to tell you why you don't generally want to use paintbrush unless it's really the only, I don't know, unless you either have massive CPU capability. You know, I was using, was it a 12 or 16 core in the past, and it was smoother slightly, but not much. I downgraded, I think, to buy a lens a long time ago, and I am running an older 8-core Ryzen CPU, but it's overclocked, and you know, I've got quite a bit of memory. Yeah, but so the thing with the paintbrush, and I know that's a little bit of overkill, but the thing with the paintbrush, and the reason that in general you don't want to use the paintbrush, is because it creates more points, and it means your CPU has to work harder. That's again a simplified, I forgot the exact term, but it's working harder. When you draw those points, it's less points. Right now, because these are just straight points, but you see, like when I do a curve, see, it created those extra points, right? And even on the straight line, it created an extra point there. And yeah, so if you look here, see, it creates all these points. So in general, vectors, I think that's what I want to say. It creates vectors. So yeah, the more you use a paintbrush, the more your CPU is going to start working hard, and the more likely you're going to start getting stickiness and even potential crashes. But yeah, I mean, granted, I just did a lot of retuning of this CPU and system because I was having some issues, but I haven't been having many issues in the last month or so. So I'm a little bit more ballsy than usual in regards to not caring about A, the paintbrush, and A, multiple occurrences or usage of the color balance RGB. I haven't been getting into too much trouble lately. So, I mean, globally there, what I just did I think is pretty good. You know, I'm going to turn it off again, see? It brings out not only the water, but you see like how it kind of gave a little bit of 3D pop to this harbor in the background because it just kind of highlights the area around it, you know. And then you can do the reverse. Let's see. I'm going to test my luck here with one more instance of RGB color balance. And what I'm going to do here, I am going to use the paintbrush actually, because I just don't want to deal with pulling in the. If somebody out there knows Darktable, by the way, when it comes to doing the regular drawing of a mask here, real quick for an example, these stupid things. I would love to know if there's a way to draw the mask and not have these at all. Like, so every time I draw the mask, I don't have to pull these back in, because I hate that. Yes, sometimes I want that. I think it's just kind of like a automatic feathering setting or something. I'm not sure, but it's a pain in the ass, because especially when you're doing more complex masks around like facial features and whatnot, and sometimes like those lines get crossed and it's really hard to grab those points. And I know there's a way to like turn on that like yellow mask that shows you the points or whatever more easily and stuff, but it's still a pain in the ass, and I'd rather not deal with it a lot of the time. So we're gonna do these. We'll do this one together on this layer, but first I'm going to do this one by itself, and we're going to potentially, this may need to separate layers, and that's where you get into trouble, like I said, though. So you start doing these little fine adjustments with multiple layers, and you think, wow, I can probably get away with one more RGB layer, and maybe you can. Maybe you can't. A solution beyond, like I was saying, like using less intensive stuff, like just using exposure and stuff. The reason I do this is because, you know, obviously you get a little bit more control over everything, you know. Tonality, let's use that word a lot, tonality. Tonality, micro contrast, what are some other fancy sounding words? But you see what I'm doing here, like that, not just about losing the highlight blowing out, but you see all that detail that I just brought in there. It's not perfect the way it is right now, but the potential, I see the potential. But so what I was going to say though is, if you absolutely want to do, let's say you're working with a less powerful system than me, or you were pushing it more than me, what you can do is you can export the file in either a very high quality JPEG file or something like a well, you can do like JPEG 2000 anyways, something like a TIFF or something like that. Anyways, so basically you can export that, and you're no longer going to have quite the depth to work with, but presuming you did all the most important parts, all the most difficult parts first, and you're just fine-tuning, usually with even just a JPEG file, especially Fuji JPEGs. I mean, a lot of times, honestly, I don't even touch raw files anymore. I just work from the JPEGs because they're very, very malleable. But anyways, exporting a high-quality JPEG or TIFF and then bringing it back into Darktable, because you now no longer have all these saved. Ooh, look at that. Yes, for me that's overkill, but you know, sometimes I see what other people are doing, and I know like super bright, super colorful grabs attention. You know what, for shits and giggles, let's do it. But yeah, so anyways, export it, then bring it back in as a new file that doesn't have all of this, you know, all these settings as part of, you know, it's no longer going to be using all that extra CPU power. You can start a whole new process, and through that you will get, see, if it was me, I'd back it down to about there. It's so far away. This is where sometimes, yeah, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, I may be close to what I actually want. I probably want to dial this down still more, but because it's such a small part of that image, the truth comes out that, I didn't even get to chroma yet. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm working on, but see, yeah, so there we go. I wouldn't go quite that overboard, but you know, at that global scale, you can be a little bit more generous with your colors. I feel like in about 10 years, I'm going to be basically the Bob Ross of this kind of thing. I'm sort of dialing back who I really am personality-wise. You guys can't handle me if you really, really knew. But anyways, ooh, yes, get some more contrast. Just say F it if it's blown out, because again, globally, it's a little overboard, but I'm liking it. I mean, you definitely, in doing so, you know, these are naturally, in reality, very saturated blues. They're really beautiful. But you're bringing this up to that same level, which, I'm going to keep using the word globally, brings the image together, you know. And there's some reflections over here that are actually coming off of here, the other side of this building. So I could actually do a quick little, this time I will do a mask around this window. And in doing so, oh come on, I don't know why sometimes it doesn't let you do straight lines. See, there you go. Now I got cross. I'm going to take that whole thing and go ahead and do it again. Come on. We'll do a second one there. You let me. No, you're not going to let me. Okay. You know what? Oh, there we go. Okay. And I'm going to go around that thing. See there? Now that's darkened it, granted. But I think we just brought a lot of blue in there. Yes, we could do these whole things down here. This part of it. No. No. We'll do another layer. Another instance. No, we won't. Not this time. Yeah, I think we're gonna... Oh, what just happened? Control Z. Control Z? Oh, now you're on control... on. No? Okay, where are you? Where's... Where did you put what? I've never ever seen that happen before. That might be exactly what I was telling you about. As we're gonna try and get rid of that. So yeah, this is likely due to running too many instances of color balance RGB. See, look at that, it's even still there, even though I turn it on. I'm pretty sure that's on that layer, but even though I turn it off, it's still showing the little mask here. And what that means is that the whole system is ready to crash. No, not the whole system, but it could likely be that Darktable is on the verge of crashing right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom on out of that. We're going to see, they kept those masks on too. Interesting. There might be a logical reason for what's going on there that I'm not quite understanding. Oh, okay. That was weird, right? Everyone with me? That was weird. Alright, I think this wraps it up as I tell you how to do things and then F it up. But there we go. I at least got that to... Okay. I'm going for it. I'm going to get rid of this thing before we get out of here. Come on. Come on. What is up with you? What is your malfunction, sir? That's really gonna mess it up. Cause yeah, that's so weird. Are you on a different layer, or are you just totally? What are you? I'm fascinated by things I don't understand. You're not part of that layer for sure. Okay, so that wraps it up. Anyways, and that's why you don't do more than 2 extra RGB color balance layers. So, did we learn anything today? Did I get more than 1 viewer? Okay, I see T-Mid stopped in. If you're still here, man, that's awesome. Oh, it looks like I'm frozen. Am I? Oh no, okay, it's still going. All right. Yeah, what's up? Oh, so I'm not even signed in. That's funny. Okay. Gonna try to get in. I'm gonna try and sign in. All right. Don't vlog when you're running RPMs. It's not the way to do it. All right. Should have been in like this earlier. There we go. Hey, T-Mid. I don't know why I'm typing it, you know. But yeah, so that's it. GFX does rock indeed, though. It's GFX 100S rocks. I was curious if you're still here. So did they give it to you, or are you is it on loan for X amount of days? this one, JPEG redemption here. That's a sharper image, but I mean this one is just more. Yeah and no at the same time. This is actually one that I kind of wanted to work with here. Just it's a little bit different angle of that same thing. Or was it this one? No, it wasn't. You know what? I think we're gonna go with this one. This one's more technically there. So yeah, I got one watching. Okay, I think you know what, rather than doing another one, I think we're gonna wrap this up. I'll try and do this again with a little bit more sleep and maybe a little bit more direction and pick a better photo. But for anyone that did watch this or does watch this after the fact, I do want to thank you for watching Film Studio Japan. I'm gonna change it. Film Studio Japan. I'm gonna change it right after this. Thank you for watching Film Studio Japan, and please do check out my website, Film-Studio-Japan.com. I have a secret raffle going on there right now, which you cannot find. If you do, you're welcome to enter it. I am very likely going to be doing a more mainstream raffle very soon here for one of my larger prints. So if you would like a chance, keep an eye out for that. That video is likely coming soon. I have a lot of videos on the back burner that I've done since basically the end of summer. There's been a lot of things keeping me very busy lately, and breaking my wrist is, you know, kind of the pinnacle of all that. So, yeah, official. I'm done. Thank you for watching Film-Studio-Taku-in-Japan, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.